Now, though, staying with delays, and we have all been frustrated at times by trains running late. But here's some good news for once. Transport for London say there's an 80% chance that Crossrail will open by the end of June. But 3.5 years late and £4 billion over budget, it does raise some serious questions about what next for major infrastructure projects in London. BBC London's transport correspondent Tom Edwards got a first look at the new Crossrail trains that will run under the capital.
It's big and shiny, and now it's got trains running every few minutes. The only thing that's missing at the moment is passengers. A scheme racked with delays and controversy seems like it's finally nearing completion. The opening of Crossrail is a big deal for the Mayor. It's also a big deal for TfL because it badly needs the finances this new railway will bring.
Good afternoon, guests. Those who are travelling with us, please board this train. Thank you.
We were given a first look at the new trains. Paddington to Liverpool Street takes just 12 minutes. It'll also bring 1.5 million people within a 45-minute commute of central London. What you notice about these trains is they're big and they're also very, very fast. And it's going to add 10% to the rail capacity in central London. It's also going to ease overcrowding on some of the tube stations. We haven't got an exact date yet for opening, but it won't be far off. The line stretches from Berkshire in the west to Essex in the east, and it's designed so it can cope with population growth.
The plan was always that, London is a growing city, and whatever we're building new going forward, it has to accommodate. And obviously pre-pandemic, the projections were large, and we will get there one day. But, for now, these stations, I think they'll look very busy when people start using them.
Crossrail once looked like this. The original budget was nearly £15 billion, paid for mainly by Londoners and London businesses. It's now, though, £19 billion. It's also 3.5 years late. Now they're carrying out safety testing. All Londoners will want to know is when's it going to open? Can you give us a date yet?
Well, it'll open in the first half of this year. I know we've said that all the time. That means by the end of June. We'll try our very best to get it open before then. But I hope people appreciate that in the next couple of months, the railway will get into a good state of completion. And then it's all about getting the reliability right. Because the day we open it, we want it to be flawless. We want it to be something you can rely upon, can be proud of, which is why we just need another couple of months to iron out the wrinkles and get the railway to the position it needs to be in.
This is Bond Street, though. It's running behind. The rest of the line will open without it. The scheme has had cross-party consensus since it went through Parliament in 2005. But commentators question whether London will see such large transport investments again.
Bond Street.
It has had problems. Obviously it's late, it's over budget. What would you do differently again?
Well, I think what we shouldn't do going forward for any major infrastructure is to give somebody else the power in relation to what happens. So the government, for good reasons, set up a Crossrail Limited company. I had no control over that company, nor did the government. We only discovered in the August before the December in 2018 that the train line wasn't ready. They had no plan for how to get it open. And I'm pleased we've managed to salvage it, but also make sure a brilliant line can open.
When it's opened, it'll be called the Elizabeth Line. Late and over budget, but transport bosses are adamant its opening is now not far away.
Well, joining us now to discuss is Deputy Mayor for Transport, Seb Dart. Seb, good morning. Welcome to you. Great to have you on the show. So this project has cost Londoners £19 billion, most of it paid for by Londoners. Is it going to be worth it? Is it going to wash its face?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. Yes, this is going to be an amazing transformation for the way in which people travel around our capital, but also will have wider benefits for the rest of the UK as well. This line, of course, is phenomenally long. It stretches from Berkshire in the west all the way to Essex in the east. It will change the way in which people travel into and around our capital. It's a world-class railway, and I think Londoners will really benefit and see the benefits from the moment that it opens.
Yeah, but we just don't know what transport figures are going to look like as we emerge from the pandemic, do we? You've got no way of knowing how many people are going to use it in the short term, at least.
No, of course not. And the pandemic's changed so much. And of course, it's added problems to the delivery as well, as it has in so many other walks of life. But look, people will still travel. Already, we're seeing at the weekends, for example, patterns of usage on the underground rising significantly. People are getting back to enjoying this city, the best city in the world. And we're very proud that they rely on the transport system as the primary way of getting around this city.
What's your view on the future of major infrastructure projects like this in London, given the massive mismanagement of this project?
Yeah, well, as you heard from the mayor, of course, we only took oversight of Crossrail in 2018 when the problems were discovered. And it's very tempting, of course, at the moment in the context of the pandemic and the context of severe funding difficulties for TfL without any assurances from government on long-term funding for TfL. It's very easy to say that there will never be any large projects again, but of course, nothing stands still. London evolves, the country evolves, and these projects are essential really to drive economic growth. I mean, when you think about the economic benefit of Crossrail and the Elizabeth line, over 62% of the contracts signed for Crossrail were for businesses outside Greater London. So this has huge national benefit as well as benefit for London. So I don't think that this will be the last project, although of course at the moment it's hard to foresee when the next project might be.
Okay, let's talk about TfL funding, because you're waiting to hear what the next round will offer. What do you need? What are you expecting?
Well, we're obviously in talks with the government at the moment, and we're hopeful that the government will deliver on funding to keep the transport system running. But we are in a very serious situation indeed when it comes to the impact of the pandemic on TfL finances. I mean, we are almost uniquely dependent on fare revenue. Some 3/4 of TfL's revenue comes from fare income. That's much, much higher than in other comparable cities in Paris and New York, for example, where much more funding comes from direct taxation, which of course we can't do in London. We don't have control over taxation. So, we have had to seek funding from government. They've given us short-term extensions each time. What we really need now is that long-term assurance of capital investment as well as operational funding that will allow us, obviously, to keep the transport system running, that will mean we don't have to make cuts to bus and tube services, but also then ensures that we can deliver on key projects, again, which benefit the whole country. For example, the delivery of new trains to the Piccadilly line.
Well, let's put that to the Minister for London, Paul. Are you going to put pressure on the Prime Minister to deliver this long-term funding, capital investment that TfL so desperately needs?
We are really keen to work with TfL, with the Mayor, to make sure that we can get London, keep London moving now and in the future. But what we need is just that business plan to keep flowing through. There's a lot of delays that have happened in the past. When we've asked the Mayor for information, it's just not been forthcoming. So
okay, but do you have what you need now to deliver what TfL needs in the long term?
Well, we've had a lot of information from him now, so we're working through that. But we'll continue talks to him, because there's no way we're going to stop pulling funding for London. And Crossrail is a good case in point about where it is going to work, because you've got 1.5 million people that you're bringing in to work within 45 minutes of the West End. West End absolutely needs that injection of people for its recovery and the resilience beyond. So that's where projects like Crossrail will absolutely hit home.
David